Okay, what is going on, guys? So, the other day I got this message from a client who felt like they weren't progressing because their numbers had stagnated in their logbook for a couple of workouts, and they'd seen online that somebody had said that you need progressive overload to constantly be making progress. If you want to get bigger, you need to be either increasing your reps, your weight on the bar, or the number of sets that you're doing. So it's definitely becoming a lot more common among, say, personal trainers or bodybuilders to promote this idea of progressive overload, progressive tension overload. And it's great because, it takes people away from the idea that we need to be switching up workouts and confusing the muscle and all this other kind of bro science. And long term, if you're getting stronger, or if you're getting adding more reps, or if you're adding additional sets to an extent, you will progress. However, there's a fundamental misunderstanding in what progressive overload actually means and when we actually need it when looking at what entails muscular hypertrophy or basically muscle building. So, a very simple analogy to explain this would be, let's say that I'm beginning to run and I want to get fitter, and I don't run at all, I just walk, and I never have ran before. If I go out and start running, let's say I run 10 kilometers and it takes me 90 minutes. That gives me a certain level of fitness, or that session will improve my fitness to an extent, in that one session, as much as one session possibly can. However, if I go out the next time, whether that's a few days later or whatever it is, it's not that I need to run faster than 90 minutes if I want to improve my fitness. If I run the race, or I run the if I do the run in, say, 95 minutes or 100 minutes, it doesn't mean that that subsequent session has no impact on my actual fitness levels. Yes, maybe if I walked it in 3 hours or 4 hours, it would have no impact on my fitness. But I don't need to be getting faster every single time I run in order to be getting some benefit from that session in terms of my overall fitness. And that's exactly the same when it comes to muscular hypertrophy. So with hypertrophy, what we want to do is we want to try and recruit all motor units. And a motor unit is essentially the motor neurons, so the signaling, the electrical signaling in your brain and the associated muscle fibers. We want to try and recruit all of them. So me moving my hand like this is recruiting motor units and and then in essence muscle fibers. However, I'm not recruiting all motor units. And the way that I recruit all motor units is by either fatiguing the muscle, so getting to a stage where I need additional support from higher threshold motor units, or by lifting a heavy enough weight at a slow enough rep velocity. So in essence, what happens when we start to recruit those muscle fibers, these higher threshold muscle fibers, which are more likely to grow or can grow bigger, have more potential to grow bigger than these lower threshold motor units, is that we have these cellular changes or cellular signaling within the muscle. And I don't need to get too much in depth into that, but essentially that is what triggers muscle protein synthesis and the building of new protein, and essentially muscles getting bigger. So going back to the analogy of the running, there's a certain threshold that I need in order to make progress, or in order for that cellular signaling to happen. And like the running with getting fitter, I don't need to be getting faster every single time. I don't need to be lifting more reps. I don't need to be lifting more weight. I need to just be within this range in order to make progress. So, for example, if I'm doing the bench press today and I hit 110 kilos for 8 reps, and it was, say, 1 rep short of failure or 2 reps short of failure, if I go in tomorrow and I lift 105 kilos and I only do it for 7 reps, it doesn't mean that that was a wasted session. It doesn't mean that that's not making any difference. I'm likely still, or I am still within that threshold that starts these signaling within in the cell. So yes, if you grade it back slowly, like, it starts to have less and less and less of a response, or less of an impact on muscular hypertrophy. So for example, if I only lifted 40 kilos and did 2 reps, it's likely that, of course, I would recruit some muscle fibers, because I'm recruiting muscle fibers by just opening and closing my hand. but I wouldn't be recruiting the higher threshold muscle fibers, which are more likely to hypertrophy, or be creating enough of or giving enough of a stimulus in order to increase muscle protein synthesis where my muscles are actually going to get bigger. So let's say I was running 10 kilometers at 90 minutes each time every single day for the next 2 months. I would increase my fitness certainly by doing that, and those sessions would get easier over time. And then at some point, I would actually have to run faster than 90 minutes in that 10 kilometers to keep improving my fitness levels, because my fitness levels would have matched or have got to the level where that's no longer then improving my fitness levels. It's actually the increase in fitness from doing that that allows me to run faster, not that I actually have to run faster every single time that I want to get fitter. It's that after a certain while, the act of running at 90 minutes no longer is sufficient enough or is below that adaptive threshold in order to improve my fitness. So I actually run at that for a while, I get fitter, and then that allows me to run faster. So essentially the intensity of the session doesn't get harder. I mean, if you're looking at somebody who's just starting out running, right? They may be very, very slow, but it looks like it's just as intense for them as it is for somebody who's very, very fit and running twice their speed. So it doesn't mean that you have to get, the intensity goes up, it's just your level of fitness. And that's exactly the same with progressive overload. It's the actual adaptations by lifting certain weights that allows you to lift more weight and then progress over time, rather than you have to progress, you have to add more reps if you want to get bigger. It's the act of lifting at a certain weight, at a certain rep range. Those cellular signaling pathways happen, including muscle protein synthesis. You get bigger, even if it's very minuscule and you can't even notice it. Then that allows you to lift more weight. So you actually lift more weight so that the intensity is the same as it was previously, just so it allows you to keep progressing. So I hope that makes sense. It's not that you need to go and add reps every single time in order to make progress, or you have to add weight every single time or you're not going to progress. It's the act of getting within that range and doing it long enough that you have then adapted to the point where you can lift more. So think about it like progress is an adaptive outcome rather than a requirement. And it's not about beating the logbook every single time, as you might see like some people posting. If you're not beating the logbook, you're not progressing. That's fundamentally a misunderstanding of how at a cellular level muscular hypertrophy actually happens. Now, it's not to say that if you can do it, by all means do it. But if you can't beat the logbook every single day or every second workout, that doesn't mean that you're not making progress. It's just perhaps the progress is so minute at that time based on your level that you cannot physically translate that into increases in the progressive overload.